I thought I was going to get us kicked off last week because I forgot. Hey, welcome to the Green Beret Life. I am Matt. You can see that Chris is back. Welcome. We got a lot to talk about on this show. Chris has sort of been out of the loop. So we're going to be bringing Chris back into the loop a little bit, getting his opinion on some of this craziness that's gone down. And thank you again for joining us. We are the Green Beret Life. If you want to check us out, please go to thegreenberetlife.com. If you want to get a hold of us, as always. And this is important tonight because we're going to talk about this a little bit tonight, Chris. If you guys want to ask us questions, okay? If you have any questions, you're thinking about going into the military, think you're about going into special operations. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, Chris and I give advice for free, as every SF guy should, if they really care about getting good people into the unit. One of the things that I'm afraid of, Chris, is that with all of the lowering of standards, with all of the lowering of morale, with all of the elimination of standards, they're going to fill this unit that you and I both care about with turds, and we don't want that. So right now we need good people in more than ever. I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to go in right now. This administration sucks. And I'm seeing all of this bullshit going on. Here's what you need to know. It's all about a team. And you've got patriots that are in right now. You've heard Chris and I say this repeatedly. There are patriots in right now that need people, good patriots, to join them to help them hold the line. The military has not been corrupted. They are trying. It's the only American institution that has not been corrupted. I think I can say that with full confidence. So please, if you have questions, give Chris and I, you can get a hold of us at the Green Beret Life at gmail.com. Is it info at the Green Beret Life or the Green Beret Life at gmail.com?
Green Beret Life.
That's what it is.
Gmail.com. Yeah.
So get a hold of us there if you guys got questions. Sometimes it takes us a little bit, but I had a couple guys call me last week or email me, and I called them, and we had good conversations. So please call me. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. I don't know if we're going to kick off with this, but I do want to talk about it because there's a lot of charlatans out there that Chris and I definitely want to address. But we'll move on to that. So, Chris, while you've been gone, I know it was crazy before you left, right? And while you were out of the loop, it retained the craziness, okay? And it got even a little wilder. And we're actually starting to see some good things happen. We're starting to see some good things happen because we're starting to see people standing up, even though there's 8, and I know you guys know where I'm going with this. There's people standing up for the people that put them into power and standing up for our country. You know, to preface all of this is we have $33 trillion in debt, and we've got a broken system where most of the representatives and senators that we send to Washington, it doesn't matter what side you are on, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, they don't represent you. And you're going to say, well, who the hell do they represent? In a way, they're representing their own interests, but who they're really representing are big donors and lobbyists. That's who they represent. And it was called out today. This is why our country is $33 trillion in debt. This is why we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to a faraway, corrupt country that we have had hands in messing all up, right? And it won't stop. This is why we left all of our equipment, our service dogs, Americans, allies in Afghanistan, while we left that airport, the most advanced airport in the world, an hour away from where China makes all its nuclear weapons. We left that in the hands of the Taliban, and who did they give it to, Chris? The Chinese. The Chinese. Yeah. Our biggest enemy in the world. Like when Jimmy Carter gave away the Panama Canal, where there were many, many, many deaths, okay, to build that Panama Canal. We gave away the Panama Canal for $1 that we built and took the better part of a century to build. And now who controls the Panama Canal? China. This is a shame. I saw this past week, I was getting all of these things on YouTube and all these praising Jimmy Carter because it was his birthday. Jimmy Carter was a turd. Jimmy Carter trashed the U.S. economy. Interest rates, you think they're high now? After Jimmy Carter was done, these interest rates look like they're at all-time lows. 8% interest rates look like they're all-time lows. Jimmy Carter gave away the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter had an environment set that led to the Iranian hostage crisis. And then Delta Force's first mission, Desert One, where these brave soldiers burned to death in the middle of the desert because everything was being run out of Washington, D.C., and it was a joint effort where everybody was involved. It was equality, Chris. The Air Force, the Marines, who the hell knows? Maybe even the Coast Guard was involved with this bullshit, right? Instead of having a consolidated leadership from special operations leading their own dudes. But instead, we all know the story of what happened in Desert One if you don't go and do the research. But what a mess. What a mess. It took getting a new president, Ronald Reagan, to scare the shit out of the Iranians. And that's when they ended up letting all the hostages go because they knew he was not going to play. So I'm seeing we're getting some comments here. I see Anon000. What do we think about abortion? We can talk about that. We've talked about it before. How do I prepare for rucking, land navigation, in Delta Force selection? I messaged Tyler Gray, former Delta, on Instagram, and he said that women are legally allowed to become Delta assaulters. I don't know if that's the case. I think we went around this before. If you can, great, go. I would say, are you in a special operations unit now? Because if you're not in Ranger Battalion, and you're not, I think you can go from one of the infantry units, like 82nd, but 90%, 99% of the people in Delta come from either SF or Ranger Battalion. So that would probably be the first step. And fair play to you. I would say go and try. If you can get in legally, I would say go for it. What do you say, Chris?
Yeah, I say go for it too. I mean, if that's the case, great, go for it, give it a try. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Chris and I have been on here. We're saying standards can't be lowered, and they were. Standards were lowered, and they were actually eliminated. And if you can run around with, approaching 200-pound ruck on your back consistently in the mountains and be able to throw another 200-pound dude on your back, more power to you. Chris and I are both over 6 foot and roughly 230 pounds. That was our fighting weight when we were in, right? Being an SF destroyed both of us, and it pretty much destroys everybody. So just know that before you go in. What were we going to say, Chris?
Okay, so apparently I've learned something new in the past 6 months that if oddly enough that you mentioned that 6 foot and that number, if you're not pushing like the 200-pound mark, apparently, you're at a disadvantage.
Big disadvantage.
Yeah.
So
and you're not muscular at all. You're actually at a very, very bad disadvantage. So
I would say anywhere between 180 and 200 pounds you need to be. Bare minimum 180-ish into the 200-pound range. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, this person says I'm 5'8" and 168. I mean, that's you're tipping the scales on the light side right there. So,
but for a woman, that's pretty big. Standards are lowered for women in Green Berets and oh yeah, absolutely they were. They were not only lowered, they were eliminated. But they had some stuff go back through, and now they're starting to. It took a general getting fired and brought up on 6 different charges. We've been through this a million times. But if you want to be held at the same standard, more power to you. Like I said, Chris and I really don't agree with women in these roles, but if it's the law and you're meeting the same exact standards as men, and knowing that the majority of men don't ever get into these units, which is traditionally the way it was supposed to be, more power to you.
There's 80 to 90% attrition rate. So, and you can you can make it through the whole thing and still get the axe. So
Yeah.
it's kind of what they think and how you react to everything. So just don't count them like, yeah, I made it through the whole thing and be like, yeah, I'm good to go, because that's not the case. So
Yeah. We're
but
not here. Chris and I are not here to try to shit on anybody's dreams. Okay.
mhm.
And Chris and I are not sexist or any of these things. Okay. We are realists and we shoot you straight. Okay. It traditionally it's been an extremely one of the most difficult courses in the world to get through. It's the Q course. Not only does it suck, there are so many different parts of the Q course. Okay. So people think, now usually you can go in on an 18 X-ray contract and you can go to SOPSI. SOPSI used to be the big cutoff point, right? Because you used to show up, 150 dudes used to show up, and maybe 20 would pass SOPSI back in the day, right? Because it was miserable. But 80% of those guys would pass selection. So you get through selection, you think, oh, great, I've gotten through this. That was absolutely awful. Okay. So I've spent, a month in SOPSI. I've spent a month in selection, just under a month in selection. This has been absolute hell. I've made it through. You're just starting. You're just starting because the hardest part of the course, in my opinion, and I don't know if Chris will agree with me here, is phase 2, which is 8 weeks. And it's phase 2 is an ass kicker because the weight goes up, right, on everything. You don't get food. You're now expected to perform because now it's starting to take a lot of brain power because you have to run your own operations. You have to perform. You can't get peered, and it's a long grind. I know they've condensed the Q course now. Chris, are they still putting language back in group now? Have they really taken language out of the Q course? Do you know?
It's starting to filter back in, it looks like. I've been trying to
Okay,
get these questions answered, but one correction you had there, small unit tactics is 6 weeks. If that's what you're referring to,
it's
it's 6 weeks.
6 weeks now.
Yep. Small
Used to
unit
be 8 weeks. So
small
yeah,
unit tactics is 6 weeks, but some of the standards are starting to filter back down and through. So
okay.
I mean, I want to
Um,
reiterate what you said about. I'm not saying I'm not saying women shouldn't go, and we come on here many times. We talk about these attrition rates, and we talk about women going. And if that's the case, then you should at least try out. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but
yeah,
to your point, Matt, there is some charlatans on here that come in and claim to be something they're not, and those
yeah,
people should be checked. I mean,
yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
so
So yeah, that's a good point, Chris. Our opinions are have been stated. Uh, I would say our opinions are in line with probably 97% of soft. But at the same time, if the law of the land is women are allowed to go and try out, cool. You better meet the standard that the men have to meet. That's the bottom line. The team is only as good as the weakest link. And what usually happens to the weakest link on a team, Chris?
they 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 get strong
Yeah,
or they leave.
that's exactly
Just
right. That's the harsh reality.
yeah.
And so you asked us what we think about abortion. Instead of getting into a long dissertation on that, we're against it. So um, there's that point there. So beyond that, let's get back to the show. I just really want to reiterate the Q course is not just the physical drain. There's a mental drain. Once you get into phase 3 and you start figuring out what your MOS is, you've got to perform at every level. And it's not just meet the standard. Meeting the standard doesn't get you in special operations, or it never traditionally has. You've got to exceed. You've got to get past the standard. Meeting the standard on a PT test, who gives a shit about that? No, that means nothing. If you're not in the top, if you're not in the top quarter, okay, you should forget about thinking that you're going to get in. You've got to be in the top quarter of that standard. Okay. So if a PT test, have they gone back to the APFT, Chris? Is that what they've done?
I don't know yet.
Yeah, I
Where
know that's the plan.
I don't know yet.
So you better be getting bare minimum. I'm going to say 280. If you ever score below a 280, okay, you're not meeting the real standard to get into special operations. So you ought to be between, and it used to be the 17 to 21 male category. So 280 to 300. And I think to max it back in the day, Chris, the run you had to do the 2 mile in 13:20, right? In the
Uh,
17 to 21 category to max the
yeah,
run.
yeah,
So the
13
2 mile
right
was
there.
13:20. I think it was 85 push-ups in 2 minutes and 86 sit-ups, something like that. It was something
Yeah.
in that range. And then as you move through the course, like to go into phase three, that we had to do they added stuff to the PT test when we were going into phase three. There was a bench press, pull ups. Of course, you got to be able to do pull ups to get through airborne school, right? And that's another thing you better be able to do. You better be able to do at least bare minimum 10 proper pull ups. Okay, 10 good proper pull ups. Okay, are there guys out there? We had a guy on our team, the smallest guy on our team could do 50 pull-ups. No nonsense, right? When I went through airborne, I got to the front of the line because I could do 20. It was a struggle for me to do 20 good pull-ups, but I could do 20 on a consistent basis, okay, which would get me to the front of the lunch line, right? But you need to bare minimum be able to do, because there's a big difference between a 230-pound guy doing pull-ups than there is a 175 or 180-pound guy, right? You better be able to do 10 good, solid pull ups. Okay. And you better be able to bench your weight and then some plus. And then you need to be an all around athlete. The big muscle men, steroid type looking guys are the first guys that go down as a heat casualty. But the guys that are just the solid athletes, okay, are the ones that will usually excel in special forces. So I would imagine it's the same for all of the other special operations as well. But you got to be an all-around athlete. You're not a bodybuilder. You're more of the CrossFit type guy, or gal, or the person that wants to make sure that they're physically strong without giving the big image that I've worked these muscles so hard that I just naturally look unnaturally big. Right? Those guys don't make it traditionally because their bodies can't take it.
Yeah.
So you want to be strong and just the all around athlete is what you want, a world class athlete. That's traditionally what got in. Um,
Yeah.
I
Great.
remember in
Great.
I remember in SOP Chris, there was a guy who, when you looked at him, he didn't look like much. He was maybe 5'11", maybe 5'10", 5'11". He wasn't very real tall, and maybe 185 pounds. And in SOPSI, you had certain things that you had to pass to meet the standard, and one of them was a ruck march, and it was a 5 mile ruck march. Chris, he did that 5 mile ruck march with an 80-pound ruck on his back, and averaged just under 8 minutes a mile. So it was seven something a mile. He ran that ruck on those tank trails back by the old SOPSI buildings. You know where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
could do that shit? Who? I mean, everybody was blown away. And when you looked at this guy, he was an actor, like a part-time actor. He was in like commercials and stuff like that. And when 9/11 happened, he joined. Uh, but people blow you away. You know, just
Wow.
I mean, how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
So,
That's like
is it bad if a
superhuman.
female Green Beret dates and has sex with men? What? First of all, I don't think there is any female Green Berets at this stage. Okay, there was a lot of controversy around the one who supposedly got through, right? But I don't know what these questions are, and I don't know if you're serious, to be honest with that. That would be and that's part of the problem. Why you probably shouldn't have males and females serving on these teams. One of the problems, one of the minor problems. So if you can't figure that out, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Chris, you want to try answering that?
No, I think that was good. I mean, we've always
Yeah.
that. I mean, honestly, that's been a debate that the U.S. military's had as a whole across the board. It don't matter whether
Mhm.
it's special operations forces or regular forces.
Yeah.
This has always been an issue. So
Hmm.
it's not just. I mean, it's not just a question. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, this is
Yeah.
a real issue that is a struggle across the board, not just here, or, not just where you're talking about in soft or anything. So um, that's really, I guess, maybe you should find that out for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, we're here wasting our time trying to give legitimate answers to someone that we thought is serious. But uh, let's move on, Chris. Let's move to what we were going to talk about tonight. And what we were going to talk about tonight was some of the issues going on with the House of Representatives and Matt Gaetz. When I said people are starting to stand up, we have 8 patriots that stood up, and they are under fire. Okay, what this basically did, Chris, and with the removal of Kevin McCarthy, and I'm going to get into why he was removed and some of the arguments for that, but Kevin McCarthy didn't. When he was elected, there was a lot of consternation, if you guys remember, uh, back in back in January of last year when they were trying to elect the Speaker of the House, and basically 3/4 of the Freedom Caucus didn't agree with Kevin McCarthy, and they went round and round and round for days and days and days. So finally, as part of the negotiation of all this, Matt Gaetz was originally the guy who was on point, standing out on the forefront of putting it to Kevin McCarthy and basically saying, okay, if you want us to vote for you, you've got to meet us in the middle here. Here's what we want. We want you to bring it to vote to the floor for term limits. We want you to bring, instead of wrapping up a 5,000-page bill that you wheelbarrow out and give us 45 minutes to go over before we pass it and say, oh, the Department of Education and the FBI are all funded in there, but you got a little bit of something for the border wall or border security, and the funding for Ukraine is dumped into this. No, 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 no. This isn't how we do this. We're going to vote on big bills individually. So if you want us to fund the Department of Education, you bring the Department of Education in front of us and say, fund this bill, right? Do you want the Department of Education or no? You don't tie it to funding for the border. And we came around to where we busted through the debt limit, and Kevin McCarthy capitulated on that and pretty much gave the Biden administration and the Democrats everything they wanted. And now it came to the budget for next year. And we have been running $2 trillion surpluses as a rule of thumb over the last several years, basically since the Obama administration. Well, even before that, but the Obama administration really started to blow this up. So we've been running $2 trillion deficit. So that means the United States takes in, via all the tax money from all the businesses, all the individuals, $5 trillion a year, right? It's a staggering amount of money. But we keep on approving a budget, Chris, for $7 trillion a year. What does that do right there? Adds $2 trillion to our budget every year, like clockwork. Boom, boom, boom. And people wonder, oh, we're $33 trillion in debt. And that's a number to most people. But for every taxpayer in America, it's something like $290,000 a person, right? This is how much debt our irresponsible government has run up. And it's not, I like to say, Chris, irresponsible, but I don't even think it's irresponsible. I think it's intentional. I think it's intentional to collapse us. I mean, we're
Yeah.
going to collapse under the weight of our debt. Our debt service now is more than our annual. Somebody said this, and I don't know if this is true. I'm just repeating what I heard. But the debt service now, with these higher interest rates and everything else, is now more than what we spend every year on the Defense Department budget, which is the biggest part of our budget.
Ooh.
So our debt service, right, on the interest of the money that we owe is our biggest line item in the budget. We can't survive. We can't survive like that. So there's this huge push. Chris and I have talked about this from the very, very beginning. Huge push for money for this stupid war in Ukraine that nobody has ever explained how it benefits the United States. And Chris, have you ever been told how this war benefits the United States other than standing up for democracy in a place that's not a democracy or not anything like the United States, which is a representative republic, not a democracy, by the way, right? In
I,
fact, you have. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
no, I've never. I don't even legitly heard anybody come on television or otherwise or having personal conversation about what is there that America benefits from. I've never heard this. I never even heard an argument about it. It's just,
No,
yeah, it's
we're
ridiculous.
we're sending tanks, we're sending jets, we're sending all sorts of stuff over there, all sorts of munitions to the point where we're running out of our stockpile of munitions. Great Britain has run out officially of their stockpile of munitions. We've emptied out our strategic oil reserves. I mean, people, if you're not paying attention, they're flooding millions, tens of millions of people in our country. So we get back to Ukraine and these tanks that we're sending over. Chris, there's reports that Ukrainians are driving our tanks over to the Russians and surrendering.
Oof.
Driving our tanks or driving these leopards that the European Union have sent over, driving over to the Russians and surrendering. Right? There's reports that over 450,000 Ukrainians have been killed. Yet we keep dumping billions into this war. And now, when Republicans are saying, no, we're not going to dump, and this is getting to why McCarthy, because this is what we were talking about, was booted.
Hmm.
They were pushing more money for Ukraine. They weren't defunding the FBI. They were holding back these committees that they put together to investigate the Bidens and Hunter Biden. They would not let McCarthy would not let Hunter Biden be brought in front of Congress to be interrogated. Now, the same time when the Democrats took control, they had brought all of Trump's kids under no evidence whatsoever in front of Congress multiple times. So this is how Democrats play and how Republicans play, right? So they hadn't done any of that. But here's the kicker, and what really, and this is going to tie into this Jamal. Did you hear about the fire alarm being pulled, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jamar Bowman is dumb as a box of rocks, former middle school principal, right? He's the one who gets up there in grandstands and screams at people over gun control when he doesn't know what he's talking about for the cameras. But there was a secret backdoor deal done between Kevin McCarthy and the higher ups in the Democrat Party, like the Biden administration and some of the few senior Democrat leaders. So, because the Republicans were putting their foot down, we don't want this money going to Ukraine in this bill. We don't want this money. So, basically, what they did is they massaged this bill to make it look like we were getting stuff for the border, looked like we were doing a work for welfare type of bill. When actually, in all actuality, they were expanding the parameters in which you could apply for welfare. So they were expanding the welfare state, not limiting it, but then saying that there was this lame ass work to welfare, but it wasn't going to be enforced, and it wasn't of anything of significance anyways. They could just stand out there and say that we did this, right? It was all bullshit. And then beyond that, they had done this backdoor deal to fund more money to the Ukraine. Now the Senate was working on a bill at the exact same time, and they wanted the Senate bill to get done first. Okay, the majority of the people didn't know about this backdoor deal. So the Democrats were in almost full panic mode. They were almost full panic mode. So in order to delay it, trying to get and this is why is Ukraine so important, right? They wanted that Senate bill to be done first, so they needed a delay. So the feeling is, or the theory is, this is when dumb as a box of rocks, Jamal Bowman goes down and pulls the fire alarm. They get him on camera doing it. Then he tries to say, I thought that opened the door, right? Now, what did I just tell you his former job was, Chris?
He was a principal at a school, right, or something like that.
Principal at a middle school. So, do principals at middle schools deal with punks pulling the fire alarm? And do they have fire practice? Like they do fire drills,
Drills. Yeah.
right?
I
So
would
he
think.
doesn't know how a fire alarm works. And anybody believe this?
Oh man.
And so he disrupted Congress. That's what all these people are sitting in jail for from January 6th, for disrupting a congressional proceeding.
Hmm.
And let's see if this guy gets charged with felony. Let's see. So all of these things added together, Gates is like, you didn't keep your promises. You didn't do anything we asked you to do. The mass majority of the Republican Party didn't give a shit. They didn't care. They didn't care about any of this, because who do they represent? The lobbyists and the donors, not the people. So 8 Republicans. Nancy Mace really surprised me. But I'm going to read the 8 that stood up with McCarthy, because you guys have to know this. These guys are under full-scale attack. In fact, they're threatening to remove Matt Gaetz from the Republican Party. That would be anybody listening out there that listens to our show. If your congressman does that, you need to contact your congressman if he votes for this and said, guess what? I'm voting for the orange juice can that runs against you in the next primary. Period. Amen. You will not get my vote. And I will convince as many people as I can possibly convince not to vote for you, because you don't work for us. You work for the administrative deep state. You work for the lobbyist, and you work for the donors, not the American people. And you are driving our country into the side of a cliff. So the 8 patriots that stood up for this, okay, were Andy Biggs of Arizona, Ken Buck of Colorado, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who Brian Kilmeade, who's a complete lightweight on Fox News, brought on his show and tried to give him the verbal dressing down, which was absolutely pathetic. Quit watching Fox, folks. Brian Kilmeade's a little bitch in anyways. Okay? Eli Crane of Arizona, Matt Gaetz of Florida, Bob Good of Virginia, Nancy Mace of South Carolina. I could have sworn to you Nancy Mace was a rhino. Nancy Mace stood up here. Okay, she needs to be recognized for it. And Matt Rosendale of Montana. These guys are patriots, because they took on not only the Democrats, they took on Republicans in their own party. And that's where all of the incoming is coming now for them. Okay? Democrats voted across the board, and they made a fatal error, Chris. They voted 100% to get rid of McCarthy, because they thought they were just going to, hey, good to see you, SVD Cleveland. They thought that they were going to introduce more division within the Republican Party. And they screwed up, because now there's been I don't think this is going to happen. Here's what I think. Now they're pushing for possibly bringing Trump in and putting Trump in there for 100 days. I mean, could you imagine the good he could do by destroying this administrative deep state for that 100 days? I mean, he could absolutely throw amok, and they are in full panic. And here's the other thing. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. Okay. The other thing he could do by doing this is basically put an end to all of these. This was what McCarthy was supposed to be doing, to these bogus lawsuits trying to impede him from becoming president. These bogus lawsuits from the federal level, they could stop. They couldn't stop the state civil ones, but they could stop the federal. Okay. And there are some things they could do when the law is blatantly being broken up there in New York and down in Georgia by these rogue civil cases. But beyond that, um, he could basically stop all funding for Ukraine, in essence, destroying the whole push to keep this war going, which is what the world needs this to stop. And he's just having them lose their freaking minds over this. If they impeached, think about this. If they impeached Biden and Kamala, and you know they got the goods to impeach them both, it would never happen, because the Republicans in the Senate, right, and the Democrats, but the Republicans in the Senate, he could wind up as president. Could you imagine? Could you imagine all of these things? Now,
Yeah.
I don't think he is going to. I don't think he's going to get the nomination. But what I think he is going to do is ride into town, and I think he is going to basically highlight these rhinos and highlight the patriots on the other side, and create a peace between them, and let the rhinos know, okay, we know who you are, and we are going to come after you. And he is so popular, he could destroy each one of these people. Even if he picked 10 of them, he could destroy them by going and campaigning against them, and they know this. So I think they're going to snap into line. I don't think they're dumb enough to try to remove Matt Gaetz from the Republican Party. And I think this is all going to work out in the end. Who do I think is going to be the next Speaker of the House? Hopefully Jim Jordan's or Byron Donalds. But they're trying to run Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise will be another rubber stamp for the donor class and the lobbyists who really want to push money so they can launder it for Ukraine and everything else. Chris, is your speaker off?
No.
Okay.
Do you hear it?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah.
So
Didn't
that's
Scalise,
what I think is going on. Go ahead.
didn't Scalise get shot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Scalise was the one that was shot up and almost died. Came back. He's a
Okay.
complete rhino. He also has blood cancer right now, but apparently he is doing pretty well from the treatments. You got to wonder if one's related to the other because he was shot up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully we're going to get Jim Jordan or Byron Donalds. Now, if the Republican, and this is why Trump needs to come in because they don't want Jim Jordan or Byron Donalds. Okay, the rhinos. You have to understand that I'm going to say 90% of the people that didn't vote to remove McCarthy are rhinos. And we have a small percentage in there that are not rhinos. Don't ask me why they wanted to keep McCarthy. But when your Speaker of the House goes and does a backdoor deal for Ukraine, which nobody wants, none of the American people want this, and lies to you and doesn't live up to any of the agreements that he agreed upon, going back to when you voted for him in trade for these conditions, and he hasn't done a damn thing to defund the FBI or the Department of Justice or any of these things, he got to go. In fact, he should be run out of Congress, as far as I'm concerned. If things work the right way, he's completely derelict in his responsibilities to the people that put him in office to represent them, because he's not representing them, not representing them. So that's my opinion on all of this. And one interesting thing of the fallout was Kevin McCarthy was giving a speech, I think yesterday or the day before, that when he was going through all the trouble with Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Caucus back in January, he had a conversation with Nancy Pelosi. This is eye-opening. Had a conversation with Nancy Pelosi, and he was saying, they want me to give them this, they want me to give them that, they want me to give, and she's like, give it to them. I'll back you up always, right? It's like, really? Okay, so she's going to back him up. Well, it turns out that she had a hideaway office. Her and Steny Hoyer, the two biggest wigs in the Democrat Party, had a hideaway office that he was allowing them to have where they could have secret meetings with donors and secret meetings with lobbyists and basically do all their backdoor shenanigans, right? And as soon as the temp speaker took over, they kicked her out of the office and they kicked Steny Hoyer out of his office. So that just shows he was working with Nancy Pelosi. And who did they give these offices to? Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is taking this hideaway office now, right?
Wow.
So she obviously didn't have his back, right? She didn't have his back. And now payback is coming for her because they thought this was going to go a completely different way. And what's going to happen is we're going to get somebody good. I just have a feeling we're going to get either Byron Donalds or Jim Jordan. I'm disappointed at both these guys for not voting to get rid of McCarthy in the first place. But maybe they're playing the long game and saying, hey, if you really want me as speaker, I can't vote against removing him. You see what I'm saying on that? Because now he'll have the ire of the whole community. Now he can say, well, I voted for them, but they can bring in McCarthy, or Trump can offer up Jim Jordan or Byron Donalds and get everybody to coalesce around them. The people who aren't scared of Trump going after him, and maybe whip the House in as much shape as you possibly could whip it. That's what I'm hoping happens here, because the budget just got kicked down the road 45 days. They have to revisit this again. They did a continuing resolution to keep things the way they were, and then they're going to revisit this in 45 days. Well, I think it's like 39 days or something now, or 30 some days now, right? And that's when they can get, we have a good Speaker of the House. Now that's when we can take up the fight against the Democrats. And all of this is just getting exposed. All of this. So Matt Gaetz is a hero. They attacked him. They said, you're doing this to try to raise money. He doesn't take any money from lobbyists. He doesn't take any money from corporations or any of the big donors. He said, I will happily take $5 to $20 from the people that I represent in my district. And he said, you're taking all your money from the lobby. And they started booing him. He says, you boo all you want. They made Matt Gaetz speak from the Democrat side. That's why Ilhan Omar was behind him. They made him speak from the Democrat when he was pushing to remove McCarthy. Didn't work. Matt Gaetz steamrolled them, and now they're coming after Matt Gaetz. They're even bringing up this bogus investigation that people are sitting, ex-FBI agents are sitting in jail when they try to say he was involved with some human trafficking deal. Then they try to extort millions of dollars from his dad, and it turns out that these were ex-FBI agents working on their own doing this. Okay, right. Do you believe that, Chris?
No, I don't believe that at all.
No.
And here's the thing. Speaking about the FBI, right? If the funding was there, why don't we see something? You know what? We need like an FBI like true life story section on TV, like an hour a night or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To kind of
Well,
this is the
maybe
true
Tucker
stories with the
Carlson should do it.
FBI.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, with all the money they get funded, what are they doing?
They're targeting American people. In fact, I'm glad you brought this up because yesterday it came out that they've put out a new list on who they're going to target and this and that and the other. If you are a Donald Trump supporter, they're saying the MAGA crowd. They are referring to the MAGA crowd now as domestic terrorists. You know, it was rumored to be that before, but now it's on paper that they're looking at the MAGA crowd as domestic terrorists, allegedly, right? And it's breaking all over the news right now. So we have an FBI that actively is on behalf of one political party targeting another political party. And I've got a really good story that I want to talk to you because remember this little thing called January 6th, Chris?
Yeah. I remember it.
We have some kick-ass investigative journalists out there. You've heard me talk about John Solomon and Sarah Carter before, and we've got other ones too, okay? There's a guy over at The Blaze. His name is Steve Baker, okay? Do you remember the Oath Keepers and the leader of the Oath Keepers was just sentenced to 18 years in prison?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a full-blown scandal that's sort of flown under the radar here, okay?
Mhm.
And it involves perjury. It involves a lot of things. But the defense for like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, their defense was only allowed to gather data from 650 cameras out of a total of 1,700 cameras that they had around Washington, D.C. recording during the January 6th deal, right? They were only allowed to use evidence from 650 out of 1,700 cameras. Now, here's where this gets interesting. A Capitol Police officer initially testified when it came to the Oath Keepers in a positive way towards the Oath Keepers, saying, nope, they weren't the ones. They were trying to actually help us and keep the crowd back, the whole 9 yards, right? Well, they realized this isn't going to work for what they were trying to do. So they brought that same, he was a low-level cop for the Capitol Police, back in, and he now changed his story, right? His story is 180 degrees from what he originally said, right? And if you think he's doing this on his own, I've got that bridge still for sale, right? In Arizona, oceanfront property too. But he, now they're bringing in a bigwig, and the bigwig that they brought in to supplement his story, the junior officer's story, was apparently Nancy Pelosi's direct detail from the Capitol Police, right? Comes in and he plusses up the story of how the Oath Keepers were really instead of helping the police, they were the ones causing the problems and this and that and the other thing, playing into the narrative, right? You know, attacking the police and completely 180 degrees difference. Well, from what they've been able to gather, they've been able to use more than 600, and some of these investigative journalists, more than the 650 cameras, not the 1,700, but they had more data than the defense for the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys or any of these guys. And they were able to piece together that this individual that came in and plus this story wasn't even within a half a mile of where he said he was when this event apparently went down, which means he has perjured himself. It was all a freaking lie. He was not anywhere near, and they can follow him and they can trace him on the cameras, right? So
Nice.
this is going to get very interesting when we see how this is all going to start to play out. I know it seems like things are really bad, but we have some victories out there. We have some victories. And things are looking up, and we've got to be able to embrace those and then push forward. We've got somebody, I know Chris and I both are like, we see all of these grandstandings in front of the House or in front of the Senate and all of this, right? But nothing ever happens. Well, Matt Gaetz just made something happen. And now he's taken he's exposing the hypocrisy of the House and the Republican Party and the GOP and the Senate. He's exposed it, and he's making something happen, and watch them come after him. But we're going to be there standing. Chris and I always say this. What do we always say? If you see a patriot take an incoming, you stand with that patriot. We're going to stand with Matt Gaetz. We're going to stand with Mike Lindell. They're trying to bankrupt him right now. Buy Mike Lindell's pillows. We don't have sponsorship from anybody. Buy Mike Lindell's pillows and products. He is a patriot putting it on the line for you and me and the rest of America. And he doesn't back down. Doesn't back down. So when you see these people taking incoming, you stand with them. You stand with patriots, because guess what? That incoming means shit when there's a whole mess of us standing with those patriots, standing strong. Those attacks, those insults, the canceling, it doesn't mean a damn thing. Doesn't mean a damn thing. And then we can form a counterattack and how we're going to go about dealing with this. We're going to use our heads. We're not playing their game. They're going to do everything they can. I truly believe this, Chris. I think illegals are going to be used. And this isn't just coming from me. It's coming from a lot of people. If they can't get their way, and right now Donald Trump is leading all of the left wing polls by 10 plus points. Okay? It's if they cannot stop him, now you got RFK Jr. going to run as an independent, right? If they cannot stop, they're going to resort to getting us in a world war, including nuclear, right? Or they're going to have massive riots here where they're going to try to make it look like it's MAGA doing it. They'll have people out there dressed up. They've got a whole slew. If you've noticed the people coming across the border and you've seen any of the stuff coming in, it's all military-aged men. It's not families. It's not women. It's not children. It's military-aged men. Now, that being said, up in Bemidji, Minnesota, apparently there has been a bust up there with illegal and trafficked minors that were being raped. That's coming out still. It was a big news story about 3 or 4 days ago, and it's sort of gone silent right now. More is going to come out about that. So this is what's going on. These people are not getting fair trials. The January 6th, when you see dumb as a box of rocks, Jamal Bowman pulling a fire alarm, claiming he thought it would open the door because he was rushing to get back for the vote, right? Anybody believes that, you're too stupid to be stupid. If you truly believe what he says, if you say you believe what he says, you're either being intellectually dishonest and you're lying, right? Or you're actually dumb, which, either way, I think you're pretty stupid, to be honest with you.
So why would they, here's the thing, why would they put the door opener right next to the fire alarm? Okay. Where have you ever seen that?
There was no door opener. The doors were shut, okay, because they shut them on the weekend, and this was going on. There was no opener for the door. There's none. It was just a fire alarm. And you can see him going, if he's not looking at the doors, he's pulling the fire alarm.
Oh man. Hey,
And
we
he
got
just
a
said,
couple.
"Oh, it's my bad." Right? We got some comments.
Yeah, we got a couple comments here on Rumble. This is what it says. Jim exposed 10 Hollywood pedophiles today, and your favorite actor is one of them. Watch at your own risk. Is that
Who?
Cavazos or Cavizos? Maybe.
Jim Caviezel.
Yeah. It said
Jim.
exposed 10 Hollywood pedophiles today, and your favorite actor is one of them. Watch it. Watch
Who
at
said
your
who
own
said
risk.
this?
Patriots Right podcast. And
Okay,
then,
so who are they? Who's my favorite actor?
yeah, that's what I'd like to know because I
My
don't
favorite
really.
actors, Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel. Those are two of my
I,
favorite actors.
yeah, and I don't really have one. I don't know
Yeah,
what that is. All of Hollywood sucks. Hey, period.
yeah, pretty much. Hollywood does suck, but these guys
Uh,
are
uh,
putting their neck on the line to expose Hollywood,
yeah.
right?
Here's the other one from TV Stream 24. The highly anticipated podcast with Donald Trump is here. Tucker is live with Donald Trump right now and watch here. And there's like a link to something. It must be, I don't know if it's a
I
link.
didn't hear about Tucker doing a live podcast with Trump, but it might be going on. I see SVD Cleveland here says Biden is now building the border wall because an election is coming, and even deep blue districts are losing it over his illegal immigration. Well, it is true. He allowed the fence that Trump put up to rust. They weren't repainting it, so it would fall apart. So they've been doing that, and then he sold off all of the material to finish the wall, and now he's building a 22-mile section of wall where hundreds of thousands of migrants have gotten across in the last few days. But they're suing the states that are putting the barriers in the Rio Grande to keep illegals from coming over and making them take the barriers down. So this is all on purpose. The gates are welded open. This is all it is optics. And SVD Cleveland is right. It's for the election. So he can say, look, I'm really trying to do something. They're not doing a damn thing. They're getting as many people in this game because they're going to use them. They're going to use them in the elections. That's why you see these motor voters. This is another thing. In Pennsylvania, when you get your driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. And who are they giving driver's licenses to? Illegals. They're doing it in Minnesota too. They're
Mm.
giving driver's license to all illegals in Minnesota. How are you going to give driver's license to illegals? You don't even know if they can drive. You don't even know if they can drive. Are you going to take
Uh,
the driver's license from Timbuktu, right, as proof
uh,
that they can drive? It's insane. But it all is to get them ready. So when you provide your ID, so so here's now I don't know all of the intricacies of this, Chris, but answer me this: if I show up and I say, "Here's my ID, I want to vote," right? There's nothing on that ID that's going to say you're illegal. Now they have to check that ID supposedly against whether you're registered to vote, right? But do you think they do that in DeKalb County, Georgia? No, no. Right? So that ID, and it shows that you're registered with that ID. If you're getting motor voter registration, they don't have to go and look at the registration anymore. They're just saying, oh, because you registered for a driver's license, you're now registered to vote. And that's what they're going to do in Pennsylvania. It's totally unconstitutional. It's totally screwing the people of Pennsylvania. When is Pennsylvania going to stand up and say Philadelphia does not run our whole freaking state? When is Illinois going to stand up and say Chicago doesn't run our whole freaking state? Yeah,
yeah. Dude,
these
this
people are
is
getting
bad.
screwed, Chris. They're getting screwed.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in Philly. Wasn't there someone
Rioting.
rioting or
Yeah.
something? I heard
A guy
about.
who shot a cop, I believe he shot a cop, got away. They shot him, right? And when the cop was found it was within the rules to he was found not guilty of murder basically when they tried to charge him with murder when he was cleared of everything they went and rioted, and you had YouTubers and TikTokers live streaming themselves looting, and they were all got arrested. This is the bandwidth of the individuals that we're dealing with out there, that the deep state and the globalist and the establishment are using to tear this country down. And they're going to be using illegals. Everybody's saying it. They're going to use illegals for voting and for causing riots. They're going to put MAGA hats. That's why you don't go out. Our side doesn't want to destroy our own country. When you see people out there burning shit down, it's not make America great again, people. We don't want to see our countries being destroyed. They're going to try to do that and get you to join them. Don't fall for any of their bullshit. Let them all get rounded up, and then we'll find out who they are. Although in some of these liberal places, they'll just be released. You won't know who the hell they are, you know? So this, go ahead, Chris.
You know, if I could say, I'm going to digress for a second back to Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, we have no interest there in Ukraine whatsoever. Okay, we have no interest in Ukraine whatsoever. I guarantee if you follow the money, some of the money is making it back into the pockets of somebody in DC somewhere at some point. Okay, that's all you gotta do is follow the money, right? It's making a big circle. It's coming back around.
Chris, I mentioned this last week. Elizabeth Warren is worth something like $128 million.
How did she do that?
She's been a public servant her whole life, or a school teacher. How?
Wow, that's crazy, man.
They're all worth like this. They're all worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. I saw somebody that said Letitia James up in that crooked AG. I don't know if you've been following this. They're trying to, without going through a trial or anything, they're saying Trump overvalued his properties. Now it looks like they got really bad numbers because he didn't come anywhere close to what they were saying. But they put a gag order on him, and now they're making Trump and his sons report any assets that they have to a Clinton-appointed judge that is in on this whole scam up in New York. It's an absolute scam. Okay, but they're saying Letitia James, the AG, who just got elected a few years ago, running, saying she was going to find something on Trump, completely unconstitutional. She should be in jail for this, right? 80% of the case had to be thrown out because it was past the statute of limitations. How dumb as a box of rocks she is. But I saw something today that allegedly she's worth $15 million. She's been in office like 2 years.
Wow.
This
is insane.
This is the grift. Well, here's something that Chris and I talk about quite. In fact, we had a long conversation today about this. We talked about the whole military-industrial complex, and I know you guys don't want to hear it, but it was about them trying to change we're looking at different rifles for the different military. You know what I mean? For different branches of the military, right? And there's new stuff that they're always testing and looking for, when some of the stuff that we have is perfectly good. Why would we be spending all of this money to switch to something that's not as good as what we have? You know? And you take it out of rifles, go to communications equipment, go to, night vision equipment, go to just about anything. GPS pluggers, you name it. Here's the gig, okay? If you're a big wig in the military and you're getting ready to retire, I'm talking like general level, okay? You want to appear as amiable to these big corporations. I always use Raytheon. I'm not picking on Raytheon, but everybody knows what Raytheon or Lockheed Martin, McDonnell Douglas, all the big boys, right? Who these guys are, right? So when they come to push something, they need leverage inside the military. And now you've got a general that can push your wares, because guess what? He knows in a couple of years when he retires, he's going to step out and step into a job at Raytheon, McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed Martin, and make close to $1 million a year, because he was that avenue in, right, with decision-making power. So now the general that takes his place is going to do what? He's going to go to his mentor, and they're going to have a good relationship, and anything that comes down the line that they're going to try to sell is going to go right to him. That's one aspect of it. Politicians have to sign off on this. So now you've got to go and take money and lobby politicians, right, to vote to adopt this new communications equipment the Air Force needs, right? Now they're going to go and adopt this new equipment, and now you need money for your campaign, right? Or in another type of slush fund. This is where the money comes from, folks. And this, and just, we're having these black circles. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit,
Chris,
but I
can you hear
still,
me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So now you have these solutions going across, not just in the defense. I mean, on the defense side, you've got them in every single aspect of government. Okay, when it's coming to deal with public money. So your taxpayer money is going for this, and that money is being pushed out. And for lack of a better terms, you don't know where it's all going to, the waste, fraud, and abuse. And this is how people, senators and congressmen, are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This is how, right here. And this is why they vote for $7 trillion budgets when we only have $5 trillion coming in. This is why they cut backdoor deals for Ukraine. This is why, across every single element, that the medical industry, everything you can possibly think of. So nobody is representing the public. They are fleecing the public because this is your taxpayer dollars. This is why those 8 Republicans are heroes. And we need to stand with those heroes, because this is how they destroy our country. This is why the gates are welded open down there. Bring them in. We need the cheap labor. One person. We need the votes. Another angle on it. But who's getting screwed? You are, because your vote is being canceled. Your jobs are being canceled. When the meat factories, the meat packers bring people from third world countries into small town USA to work at a factory for minimum wage, when the government comes back in and supplements them through welfare, and they live like they're making 100 grand a year. That might be a slight exaggeration, but the small town people that originally that factory was there to employ no longer get employed there. But their taxpayer dollars are going to subsidize the welfare of the imports they're bringing in. Just how does a country live like that? You can't. You can't. And you're destroying these small towns with all of these history, all part of, and it's all designed to destroy our culture as well. They're killing multiple birds with one stone. And it's heartbreaking. And Americans have had enough. And that's why these Republicans that you think are on our side aren't on our side. They need to go. They can stand up there and grandstand. Dan Crenshaw, dude, he was front and center on this budget battle for the rhino side. You know, and how sarcastic, and he's a smart ass on top of everything else. Get rid of Dan Crenshaw. Get rid of him. And in the Senate in Texas, get rid of Cornyn. These guys are not working for you. They've never worked for you. Ever. They are burying you. They're getting ready. I've talked about this the last 3 shows. They are going to destroy the auto industry. Electric cars are made for the elites. You are never going to be able to afford one. And they're never going to be better for the environment. Why do you think they're pushing electric cars when we don't have an infrastructure that can support it? Why? Because you ain't ever going to be driving them. You're going to be priced out of buying a vehicle, and they're going to be the only ones offered. You won't need one because you're not going to own any private property. You're going to live in a 15-minute city where you can take a bicycle or public transportation to get anywhere you need to go and get services that you need. You will rent everything you need, and you will be happy while the elites live it up. None of this shit is for them. It's for you, and it's for me. We're not going to take it. You going to take that shit, Chris?
No. You know what? I think more and more Americans are getting involved in this every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Some of this stuff should be, like when you're watching social media, you'll have ads pop up, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like whatever algorithm is running for social media. It should what should be on social media is things like what Matt Gaetz did, right? That's what
Mm-hmm.
should pop up on social media. People who, dude, answer me this. Like, if there's like a Bear aspirin commercial on social media, don't you think people already know they need Bear aspirin, right? They
Yeah.
should probably go and
Yeah.
get it. It's not like you need a commercial to tell you that, but you do need a commercial to show you what Matt Gaetz did. Uh, I don't know if it was today or yesterday or whenever, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, like whatever, 30 seconds or a minute, whatever, shows him doing something. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we need in these commercials. And don't even get me started
Well,
on Twitter, dude.
it's interesting you said that because we've been on YouTube here the whole time, and I do want to mention this because I haven't mentioned it yet. Uh, we're on here to draw people over to Rumble and Odysee. So if you don't have an account, please go over to Rumble. YouTube, we're all very, very short time on YouTube. Okay, we're very, very short time. Especially as the election season grows closer and closer, we are going to be under more scrutiny, more censorship. It's all going to be kicking in. Okay, so we get kicked off of YouTube at this stage, so be it, right? Rumble is now where it's at. While you were gone, Chris, they made a full-on attack, starting with the British government accusing him of rape from 20 years ago. All of this nonsense. And then the British government they called YouTube, and YouTube dropped Russell Brand immediately, right? And then they called Rumble, and Rumble told him to go pound sand and then posted their letter, right? Twitter told him to go pound sand and posted their letter. TikTok told him to go pound sand, right? So now they made a big attack going after Rumble's advertisers. So any advertiser that pulls off of the two big ones, HelloFresh and Burger King, both pulled advertising from, although nobody's ever seen a Burger King commercial on Rumble, pulled advertising. So you need to go out there as patriots, stand with Rumble, who's standing for free speech, and don't shop at Burger King or HelloFresh. They can go pound sand. They can go out of business as far as I'm concerned, along with Target stores. I would love to see Target. I'd hate to see people get hurt, but I'd love to see that shit corporation get pushed into bankruptcy and maybe purchased by somebody else, right? Bud Light, push them. They need to go. Any corporation that falls for this leftist indoctrination and tries to limit your freedom of speech, do not shop there ever, 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 ever. Put them out of business. We don't need them. You take BlackRock's power away every time you put one of these big corporations out of business. Then they ain't going to want to touch BlackRock like the plague, because it's BlackRock that's pushing them to do shit like this. BlackRock, Vanguard, the public employees retirement funds from California and New York, most likely Illinois, right? Screw them. You take power away when you cancel them, and we have already proven we can cancel. So we play that game. I hate when the people say, I'm not part of, the boycotts. Bullshit. This is how you fight back. So you're not going to go and get in the mud when this is what the other side is doing to us? No. You get and you fight harder. So you want to play that game, Burger King? You can go out. Burger King's already in bankruptcy. Guessed me up to Canada a few years ago. You're now a Canadian company. Burger King. That's garbage anyways. I mean, when was the last time you had a good meal at Chris?
Say what?
When was the last time you had a good meal at Burger King?
Oh, dude, I don't know.
And Chris has been made to eat things that would make a billy goat puke, and he hadn't eaten at Burger King. So what does that tell you?
I kind of like their fries, man. They changed their fries a few years ago. I mean, I don't know what they did to them, but I haven't
They
had
put
them in a while.
estrogen in them.
But
They put estrogen in those fries, dude. Allegedly.
Like years ago?
They put estrogen.
Yeah.
Are, are your nipples getting sensitive now?
I
you
haven't
just
had that.
do you,
I
do
don't
you
know
break
what
down
that
tears
is.
in tears every once in a while?
I
So
tried to I tried to quit that years ago.
yeah,
Uh,
um,
you know?
I had a 4 meat pizza tonight, and I got to watch my diet because I'm putting on some extra weight I don't want to put on. So,
Yeah, it
anyways,
happens.
I didn't eat Burger King. I'm not eating McDonald's. Closest thing I had an ice cream cone from Dairy Queen the other day. That's the closest thing. Fast food. Here's the last thing I want to get into because we're starting to have some connection issues. It looks like. Um, there are a bunch of charlatans out there in the special operations, well, claiming to be in the special operations community. Um, and I want to make a distinction because Chris and I have a military prep program that we offer, right? Where you come out, and it's not necessarily for special operations, for anybody going into any branch, and you're basically taught some hard skills, a mindset, and you're pushed a little bit, and you can take those hard skills that you've learned and be successful with it going into wherever you're going to go into the military. It's going to help you in basic. It's going to help you beyond this, and you're going to have skills that some other people don't have. Like you're going to get land navigation with MGRS, things like that. Okay, that's one. Okay, if somebody if you go onto a Patreon and you can ask any question you want, that's maybe not that bad. But if somebody's charging you, yeah, here, of course, we have connection issues now. Chris, can you hear me? Can you hear
Yeah, I
me?
can hear you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so if somebody's charging you $200 to give you advice, basically over the phone, train you over the phone, and basically saying they're going to get you selected, that is 100% horse shit. Okay. And also, because there's some guys out there that we're digging into. Mac from Aspiring Green Berets and Army Rangers has been helping out here. And there are some of these special operations prep courses out there where it's very, very funny that you don't get any information about who is behind the channel. And on some of these, they're not even special operations guys that were ever in special operations. And they're touting themselves as getting you ready for special operations and getting selected, right? And they're charging people $200 a month to coach you over the phone. This right here is absolute bullshit. Chris and I offer every night we do this SCIF. If you have any questions, you want to ask us anything, that you can email us, and one of us usually gives you a call. Okay? And we give out advice for free because we care about the unit and care about getting good people into the unit. We sit here and tell people right now we need good people in these units more than ever. And we're starting to see some of these guys are special operations veterans coming out pushing this stuff, right? Which is bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Paying people for advice, it's horseshit. It's cheesy as hell. Chris and I will both go on record saying this is cheesy as hell, right? If they're teaching you something hard and you're coming to a class that they're putting on, that's one thing. Okay. Even if maybe they have a Patreon and you're getting advice, you can ask any question you want in the Patreon for a small, minor amount to be on that Patreon to get some special time. Or that's even okay. But if somebody's charging you and they're not there physically teaching you something, and they're charging you basically for advice, and you don't know who this individual is, and they're telling you how to get ready for a course that they never completed successfully themselves, there's a huge freaking problem. Chris, do you want to address this at all?
Yeah. Um, so first thing, like these guys need shutdown. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like Matt mentioned here, that email us, whatever, we'll get back to you. But we have never once came on here and said we're going to charge you for advice. Okay. But what we did say is this: we did say that our military prep course will help you It's not going to guarantee you. There's no way that Matt or I can guarantee you're going to go to any selection across the military um, genre and get freaking selected in anything. There's no way we can. There's no way anybody can guarantee that. That is something you have to figure out for yourself. And what we did say is we gave you an average height, average weight of a person that has a good chance of making it, given they have the right mindset, they can endure some pain, and think out and be a thinker, and again be a leader too. So at certain points, but there's no way any kind of consulting advice um, over the phone that's going to say, look, this is what you need to do. If that's the case, that's you might as well go to a motivational speaking class or something, because that's essentially
Mm-hmm.
what that is,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, there's no motivation there either. It's not like
Yeah.
you have somebody stand up in front of you and go, hey, you guys need to get motivated to do it. No, you're supposed to be a self motivator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You do a deep dive in your head and decide you want to do this, and that's what you do. And you put your head down to the grindstone and you move forward. There's no kind of advice, anything. Again, these guys need to be need to be shut down. I mean,
Yeah.
and we have the numbers, we have the information that you need. If you think somebody is fraudulent, we can help you with that too. And we don't have to be involved. We'll just give you the information. You call, and you can do it yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
too
So
easy,
yeah,
too easy.
be really on the lookout for these guys that are out there trying to get you to sign up. We're going to get you selected, and we're going to do that's a bunch of horse shit. The only person who's going to be responsible for getting you selected is you and the man upstairs. Period. Amen. We
Yeah.
can we can help you if you come and if you want our advice, we give our advice free, and we will give you a no shitter for free as we get on here and do almost every Thursday night, right? If you call us, we will spend time on the phone with you. We will take the time because we care about the unit. We care about the country. We care about the military. We want good guys. We're not going to sit here and say, oh, in order to get my advice, you've got to pay me or you've got to do that's bullshit. That is complete bullshit. And I'm very disappointed at any legitimate soft operator that is doing that, right? Advice should always be free, always be free, coming from guys who've been there and done it, right? It should be free. Now if they're providing a service, that's one thing. But you have guys on there teaching that have that a lot of these special operations channels that you see where you don't see a face or a name with it, be very dubious because a lot of these special operations channels out there are support guys or guys that have never even been in any special operations unit, even at a support level. That's who's putting these things on. There's a reason why they're hiding their identities. And I don't care if they're getting consulted from some special operations dudes or whatever. You go on there and you advertise yourself as a preparatory guy for people getting into these special operations units, and you've never been in one of those units yourself, and you don't have your bona fides put in your about section. There's a problem right there. And then if they're trying to tell you, I'm going to coach you through this, great. Go down to your local gym and find a good personal trainer, right? Or you can
Yeah.
call guys that will give you advice, and you're not going to have to spend a dime. It just gets me hot under the collar, and it just and I ain't the only one. I'm going to tell you that the majority of special operations dudes think like Chris and I. These guys doing this shit are the outliers. So
There,
we're not hitting people that teach classes, physical classes that you go to and learn something, a physical skill. We're hitting this bullshit where people you don't know who the hell they are and are also charging you for advice. That is just insane. So if
yeah,
you
that's
have
fraud.
something, Chris made a good point. Hit us up with it so we can do some investigation into it. We've got some people that help us and avoid these things like the plague. Avoid it. There's no secret to any of this Chris already hit on what it takes. Here's what it takes. It takes determination. You want to do this. You're not going to quit at any rate whatsoever. No matter what, you're not going to quit. Okay? You have a good work ethic. You've prepped yourself. Okay? You've gotten yourself in shape. We can tell you what to expect. Okay? If you want that information, right? Here's another one. Avoid freaking alcohol. I know that, you know, some people, well, there's out 90% of all problems, and I'm not even going to say special operations in the military, are a result of alcohol. So if that's a sacrifice that you don't think you can give up, and yeah, there's a ton of people in the military that are all about alcohol. I get it. And technically, you shouldn't have to give it up. But the reality is, you will get yourself jammed up if alcohol is that important to you. You're going to get jammed up at some stage or form. Okay? So I would avoid alcohol. Chris may disagree with me on this, but it causes nothing but trouble. And just have that idea that, hey, there isn't a secret sauce to this. Here's what makes special operators a little bit different. They endure. They endure. They take the shit, they roll with it, they think their way through problems, and they make it happen. They don't make things complicated, they make things simple. And that should be involved with your prep for going into these units as well. Get as much information as you can, make it as simple as possible, have the discipline, keep up getting ready on a regular basis, 5 to 6 days a week, 5 days bare minimum, but I'm going to say 6 days a week. Okay? And the bodybuilder types, that ain't it. You've got to be strong and you got to have endurance. So you need to figure out what kind of workout's going to get you there. Okay, CrossFit's an excellent way. Don't hurt your back. Don't go nuts on the ruck. Okay, you want to ruck. You don't want to go throw 200 pounds on your back and try to run around with it because you're going to break yourself. You want to start light. And you never really, when you're training with a ruck, you never really want to go super heavy anyways. So the idea is to build your body up. I even talk about doing sprints. I don't sprint at 100%. I do 20, 40, 60, 80, maybe 90. Right? That's how I do it. And I do it on a consistent basis. Run stadium stairs. Do different things. Doesn't have to be complicated. Push-ups, pull-ups, dips. Get your bench press. Right? You can do that with doing lots of push-ups. You're going to have a good bench press. But get on there and do a bench press. But push-ups, pull-ups, dips, those are important. Do squats. Do squats with light weight, right? Because that's going to help you. Or do lunges, even better. You don't need any weight. Lunge. That develops testosterone, right? Which is going to make you strong, right? But don't hurt yourself. Come up with your own unique exercises that change them up a little bit, that keep you working out 6 days a week. 3 days should involve strength training as well as cardio. And the additional 3 days that don't involve strength training should have cardio in them. Right? Bare minimum. Chris, did I say anything you disagree with in any of that?
No. I mean, you gotta mix it up a little bit. So you gotta be strong.
What about the alcohol? What are your opinions on alcohol?
I mean, here I look at it like this. If you want to be in special operations at some point, in the military across the board, there's going to be a time where you're not going to be able to drink alcohol for extended periods of time. Okay, so my recommendation is, don't drink. I mean, Matt's right. Does get people in trouble. And the other one is, you know, if you have to drink, drink in moderation. If you drink, don't drive. I mean, you follow the rules, and then guess what? You make it out at the end. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
just know that there's going to be extended periods of times where you must serve in an environment that there's not going to be any alcohol. So
Mm-hmm.
if you need alcohol, then that's probably not the good time. Going to be a good time for you. So
Chris is exactly right. You're gonna be required to serve where it's 100% business, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you cannot fuck around. That's why this stupid question here about having sex, right? It pisses me off. We're trying to give advice to somebody, and they put this stupid question there. I don't even feel bad calling you out now. What a dumb question. That question right there either says you're trolling us or you're too dumb to be in special operations, one or the other. Because your job over there is required to do the mission and to take care of the guy to the left and to the guy to the right. And if you're over there fucking around, not taking this serious, drinking, doing shit you're not supposed to be doing, you're not paying attention to what's going on in an environment that can get all of you killed. So it's a serious, serious job. And it needs to be operated with serious individuals. And that's what we're looking for to fill these units. So if you have advice and you want to ask Chris and I anything, our advice is always free. Always free. We're there to try to help get patriots in to special operations and the military in general. So that's where we stand on the issue. Be very, very dubious of anybody asking for money, claiming they're going to get you selected, right? Very dubious. Okay, if you're going to go and take a physical class where they're going to teach you how to ruck, they're going to teach you how to take care of your feet, they're going to teach you land nav, how to tie some basic knots, they're going to teach you how to shoot or whatever, this type of stuff, that's one thing. That you're getting a hard service for that, which is expensive for people to teach, right? So those are legitimate, tangible classes. But when somebody's saying we're going to give you advice and you're going to pay us, and we're going to get you in, right? Bullshit. I'm going to coach you over the phone. What kind of bullshit is that? Yeah, I mean, bullshit.
Oh. Dude,
So,
I'd like to hear some of this stuff. Like, you know what I mean?
me
Like,
too. You know, maybe we ought to go undercover and pay for one of these things and record it and listen to this bullshit. You know?
Oh man.
You know, that's not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea. And then do a show on it. So then there might be something. If one of you guys are out there doing this, okay, be on your guard. I think we'll put this together at some stage. There may be other dudes besides us involved. Okay. So with that being said, I think it was a good show tonight. It's good to have Chris back. The show flows better when you're here, dude. Period. Amen. Just does. So
nice.
Nice. I know everybody's waiting at the edge of their seat. Did you make any progress on getting that piece of shit that goes by the name of Murdoch?
Man.
No progress, huh?
Just a shred of evidence. That's it. That's all I got. You know?
You found a tip of his tail.
Shred of evidence.
A tip of his tail. The rest is growing back as we speak. Right?
Yep. Who knows? You know what I mean? Maybe I'll have more report next week.
Were there any comments out there on Odysee or Rumble that we missed, Chris?
Nope, that's it. We got them.
Okay. Well, we stayed on YouTube the whole night. If you haven't already, please, please, please go and sign up over at Rumble or Odysee. We're the Green Beret Life on both of those. If you come across this character, be very careful. You know, he ain't to be played with, and he ain't to be underestimated, right? But if you want to give him a message, what message should that be, Chris?
You lean over and you say, Murdoch, Green Beret Life is coming to get you.
Exactly. Good night. Thank you for joining us again. Live in freedom every day. We'll see you guys next week.